Hi, my friends. Welcome back. So, together we're going to get some extra added pizzazz out of our web pages by including CSS on our HTML. And we're going to use these examples throughout our CSS course. Now, of course, to do this, we will first need to learn how to write CSS. And what we'll do is we'll then talk about how to include CSS in an HTML file. Then we're going to add colors to our web page and learn how to make the web pages, display different styles. So for now, let's get into the basics of CSS. So as you may know, we have created the basics of web pages thanks to tags that we use in HTML. And then we will define style properties for these tags with CSS codes. So let's just have a look now at how to write and what to write first when changing and altering and making these definitions. So as you can see here, the CSS code contains some differences, so it makes it different than tag usage in HTML. So we write the tag that we want to use within the curly brackets, and after typing the name of the feature, put colon, write the value, and we'll end it with a semicolon. So here we can add a second property named value. And then finally, we can close the curly bracket. So actually, we could say that the main purpose of CSS code is to affect more than one object with code. So we can influence more features with less code. That is called efficiency. So now let's start writing CSS code gradually throughout the application. So as I mentioned before, what we'll do is prepare our application using the Atom text editor. So I'm going to just open Atom now, and you can see what I'm talking about. So first off, I'll create a folder for CSS project right here on the desktop in order to not interfere with any of the other applications. And then I'll start Atom. Now, you remember how to produce a basic HTML code. You just write your HTML and press the Tab key. Of course, for this to happen, we will need to save the page that we open in Atom with the HTML extension. And here's our basic HTML code. And first, I'll want to write the title, CSS course. Now we can start filling in the body. As you may know, all of the parts that we'll see on the website were written between body tags. So we can write a head as a CSS lesson with the H1 tag. And perhaps you remember that you can add paragraphs just by using the P tag. And I'll just write a simple paragraph within. It's not necessarily important what it says, but just save the changes and look at what we've done. Look at what we've done. Now let's see about coloring a little bit, and we can log into CSS now. And let's use the style property for this. So let's say that I want to make our head red, and I'll write style in the H1 tag. Then between the quotation marks, I'll just write the color and put colon and type red and put a semicolon. Save the changes and have a look. And there you go. Our title is red. You are doing this along with me, right? So now let's change the color of the paragraph. So let's just make the first paragraph. And for that, of course, in the first P tag, we'll write style, color, colon, and let's write blue and remember the semicolon. Okay, so now let's make the second and third paragraphs blue as well. And then when we save and review the changes, we can now see that our paragraphs are blue. So here we've seen inline CSS by writing a different style for each element, right? That's just a little example of what we're going to do now. Of course, inline CSS, it might seem logical when it comes to the modification of a single tag. However, when you're trying to put a whole lot of details on a very complex page, and when they're going to be using similar features, it's going to be a real pain to write separate styles for each label, don't you think? So, what do you do in that situation? That's why CSS code offers us different preferences. So I'll show you another CSS method. It's called internal CSS. So by using the style tag in the head section, let's just undo the changes that we made just now. I want to show it to you, see how it works. And yeah, okay, so we can see this. So when we refresh our page, the colors are all gone. Now let's open and close the style tag on the head. And as you may remember, we'll specify the label that we want to change. And I'll just write the H1 tag here because I want to make the title red again. Make the curly brackets and write the property colon and value semicolon. Type color, colon, and red and semicolon. And let's refresh and see the changes. Okay, so the title was red. Now let's make the paragraphs blue by using the same method. P curly brackets color, colon, blue, semicolon. And when we refresh the page again, all the paragraphs are blue. Good job. So as you can hopefully see, all the P tags were affected with just one change, right? So here we can affect all of the changes that we want to make on the page with the style tag. However, we do this on an HTML document. CSS, however, will offer us a more, perhaps professional method. It's certainly what you will be using as web designers. With external CSS, we can include an external CSS page and put that into, include it into an HTML document. And therefore, by preparing CSS and HTML code in different documents, we can separate CSS and HTML from each other. However, to do this, we need to use the link tag. So first, let's create a CSS file and do it along with me. So I'm creating this CSS file, and now we can customize this file. So let's say that we want to make H1 red again. And make the paragraphs blue again. And we'll write and save CSS code in curly brackets in the same way. Good, so now it's time to link our CSS file to HTML with our link tag. So delete the changes in the head part in our previous example and restore the application to the beginning. Now let's write a link to the head and press the Tab key. Here we first see the expression REL equals style sheet, which indicates that it is related to the style. Then we see the href tag, and that indicates the root of our CSS file. Now, since our HTML and CSS files are in the same folder, it's going to be enough just to write the name of the CSS file. And when we refresh, and let's look at our page, and we see that the H1 red and paragraphs are blue again. Now we make the color of the paragraph part orange in our CSS file. And let's refresh our page, and there you go. The paragraphs have now turned orange. All right, so that's enough for now. Play around with that to get practiced, because in this lesson we have entered CSS and the magical world. We looked at briefly how to write CSS code in a very small example. We examined the changes on a single tag with inline CSS. Then we made changes to the page using the style tag in the header part of the HTML document with internal CSS. Then finally, we separated external CSS and HTML and CSS documents and learned how to include a CSS file in the HTML file with the link tag. All right, goodbye for now. I'll see you in the next lesson.